All right, hey, welcome again to The Journey. Welcome to those joining us online as well, as we are in this series called 20. And as Katie just mentioned, we're looking kind of back at the last 20 years, looking forward to where we're going as well, kind of where we've been, where we're going. And so you saw some pictures there of some people from our church that have been around the world. And that's a little bit what we're talking about today, is we're talking about sharing hope. And one of our goals is to make an impact, not just here locally, like we talked about last week with spreading kindness, but to share hope even around the world. And I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's been going on in the world. Like this week, kind of one of those weeks, it's kind of like I don't even know what to do about that. Israel's kind of dominated the war, and Israel's kind of dominated the news cycles, and there's lots of different opinions about how to do things, but that's like one of those situations. They've been fighting for hundreds of years, and it looks like how is there even a solution to it? It can feel kind of like overwhelming. I don't know if you ever feel that. I tried to not watch the news because it's usually just depressing, but there is still kind of a level you want to pay attention. I don't know if you're like me like that, but you know, as you watch the news or you look at world events, sometimes you see like all the pain or the suffering. It's like, here's another maybe world weather catastrophe, and here's now this war, and here's maybe some food crisis, or who knows what the next thing is. It's like the news is always sharing all these depressing things around the world, and as you watch those things, it can be a little bit of like, what do I do? It's kind of like throw your hands up. Like, what could I even do about this? Like, what's the whole point of all of this? It can just be overwhelming. Well, one of the things we've said throughout our history at The Journey is like we want to do for a few what we wish we could do for everyone. Now, we can't solve the world hunger problems. We can't end the war in the Middle East. We can't help every person who has a weather catastrophe or things like that, but we can do something. And that's been our way forward. And in fact, even when we first began the journey, we didn't have any like global partners like we do now. But I took a trip with a team. We took about a van full of people, about 20 people, a car or two, and we went down to Mississippi to do hurricane relief from Katrina. So that was like way back a long time, if you remember that. That was one of our first kind of trips and kind of bigger than our community outreach things. And we had lived in a tent down in Biloxi, Mississippi for like a week, and we would just go out and help people at their houses who had damage and just do whatever we could. And we took our tent and we did like extreme home makeover on it. We had all these fans going because it was like down south in the summer, blazing hot. But man, it was a great opportunity for us to make a difference. And you would drive around town there and you would just see house after house just destroyed or just needing help. And we couldn't help a lot of people, but we helped some people, and we got to be able to make a difference for them. And as we began to grow as a journey, we said, man, what if we could make more of an investment in a couple different places long term? And so we had our first two global partners were the House of Hope Home in Kenya, Africa, and Verve Church in Las Vegas. We got connected with Vince Antonucci. He was doing this church in Virginia, and he was someone who was reaching people far from God, and we got connected with him, and then he felt God's calling to take him to Las Vegas, and so we helped him start that church out in Vegas. We sent a couple different teams out there. I went out there with a team. A couple other teams went after that and helped launch Verve Church in Las Vegas to be the light in Sin City, in a dark place. And one of the other partners was the House of Hope Home in Kenya, Africa, and there was an orphanage in Africa, in Kenya, and we would sponsor some kids to be in there, and we kind of helped them build up the orphanage to be able to provide for the needs of these kids. We bought them a cow one year, we bought them chickens another year, we bought them a thing that they can turn the cow poop into program to help people even in the community, and some of the difference that we've made are still continuing on there. And we had 3 different teams go to Kenya and make a difference over there, and our contacts there, Jason and Lisa, eventually have moved on from that, and so our partnership there has kind of dwindled down. And but man, as I think back of our history, it's been this rich history of making a difference around the world, and we do that because this is what Jesus calls us to do. I want you to look at this verse with me in Acts chapter 1, verse 8. These are some of the last words of Jesus to his disciples. And he says this to them. He says, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." And he says this was a much bigger call for his disciples as they were just beginning the church. And he's like, right here in Jerusalem, that's the city they were in. Right here in Jerusalem, you're going to be my witnesses. You're going to be the people who are sharing the good news and the hope of this life I can offer people. And so right here locally in Jerusalem. And then their region, their area, their kind of like their countries were Judea and Samaria at that time. And so in this region, you're also going to be my witnesses, and I want you to take this hope that I'm offering people to the ends of the earth. Now, again, this was the call of his disciples, and as they were beginning the church, but it's the same call for us today, that we have this gift of hope, this good news of Jesus, that we can have eternal life, that we can find a place to be accepted and to belong in this family of God. And he offers us this gift of forgiveness and eternal life, and this is the hope that we have. And this is the hope we want to offer people. And so when we think of all of our opportunities to share hope around the world, it's not just about doing some good things. It's about how can we help people connect with this hope that we have in Jesus. This was the call of the disciples. It's the call of us. And so we try to do that same thing, thinking about like what can we do locally, what can we do regionally, and what can we do globally. And here's some of our current connections, as you see on the next slide. Our locally, as we're thinking about sharing hope, we have our collaboration. So we partner with Verve Church and with Restore Church, and that collaboration is all about how we can reach more people along the lakeshore with this message of Jesus. And that's the whole focus of that group. And so, again, Venture Church used to be our north side campus. They went on their own. We helped start Restore Church, and we were building this collaboration of churches so that we can further our impact and continue to add more churches to that, to reach more people along the lakeshore. Regionally, if we're thinking about our country, we have this partnership with Converge Mid-America. Converge helped us actually launch 20 years ago. When we started the journey, they gave us funds and support and coaching, and so they helped us launch. And so we continue to partner with Converge Mid-America, and Paul is still actually active with them, and so that's always encouraging. And so we partner with them to start more churches. They say for every church that starts, there's at least 3 that have closed down. And so we need to continue to bring the light of this hope of Jesus to our region. And so we try to start more churches. And so we've had some initial kind of commitments to some churches, like down by Kalamazoo, there was a church. Up in Petoskey, we've had some. And now, like currently, like a lot of those focus is going towards helping Restore, Launch, and Venture kind of relaunch. But they're all part of that same Converge partnership. And then globally, you see there we have our partnerships in Peru and in the Caribbean. And I'm going to give you a little bit of update on them. But if you're looking through the list, you might notice that Verve Church isn't on the list up there. And so we have some good news and we have some bad news today. And so Vince started Verve Church, as we just mentioned a little bit ago. And so they're in Vegas, and that's not the easiest place to do things. And so throughout their history, they've reached a lot of people, and they have been a real light in the dark place. But a lot of times what happens is, as people would begin to follow Jesus, they're like, I need to get out of Vegas. And so they would just move away because of the temptations or the struggles that they were continuing to face, and they had to get away from that. And so they had a really hard time kind of building some momentum because a lot of people would just move away. And then Vegas was hit a little harder with COVID stuff than anybody else. They were kind of shelter in place longer. They had a hard time recuperating from that, but then also they have had different landlords throughout their time. So they were in a little strip mall thing, kind of like about the same size but we used to be at over on Chamber Drive. And they always have paid more than us, but every landlord they get increases their rent. And so they just got a new landlord this year, at the beginning of the year, and their rent for 12,000 square feet was about $13,500, and that was every month. And the new landlord came in, and they said, "Can we keep it at that?" He goes, "Well, no, actually, I'm going to be raising your rent to $19,000 a month." And so they just could not sustain that. And Vegas, in the current situation, there was really no other options for them to move to as they explored all of those things. And so So Verve Church has now been enfolded by another church in the suburbs of Vegas, and they've taken on that church and kind of they're maintaining that lease for now and kind of seeing where that's going. But our partnership now with Verve has kind of come to an end. But Vince is still in Vegas trying to make a difference. His wife has a counseling practice there, and they do a lot of other ministries in Vegas. And he's an author as well, so he's doing a lot of writing and things like that too. But that partnership has kind of come to an end because we're in a season of transition. We thought we'd just throw another one out there for you. And so things change over 20 years. And so that's kind of the bad news, but there's still so much good news in that because they have had years and years of impact and lives that have been changed there. And so we're really grateful for that partnership. But we have our two other global partners now are Compassion in Peru, and we also have our Pastor Jackson down in the DR. And so here's a few pictures from Peru, some of the latest pictures that we have. And so we're hoping to get an update before Christmas with our Hope Christmas project of what's currently happening. But these are some of the most current pictures that we have for what's been going down in Peru. And so we're really excited about what is going on there. So if you're kind of new around here, when we built this building, it was in 2019. When we were raising money back in 2018, the first fruits of that we gave away so we could start a church down in Peru. And so we partnered with Compassion, and they started this church in Peru. We gave money for that church to start, and then they started a Compassion project out of that. And Compassion helps kids get out of generational poverty, and they do it in the name of Jesus. And they provide education, they provide support for families, even some medical supplies, and they share the good news of Jesus with them as well. And so we have this church that's being the light in Santa Rosa, and they're also spreading kindness in their community by caring for these kids in this project. And a lot of you support these kids. And so when we support them, we send a monthly money, and it allows them to go to school, to be able to learn, to be able to hear about Jesus, and you see some of those great pictures there. This morning, I was hoping to be able to give you an update about the trip. We've taken a trip to Peru, and we want to take another one. And so in 2024, this next year, will be the first time they offer trips again. During the pandemic, they kind of shut that down. And so they used to do about 300 church trips a year. So 300 churches would send people to these places a year. And so that has been shut down for like 3 years. Now they're starting it back up next year, but they're only doing 30. And so we are on the list, and it could happen still in next year, but it looks more likely it's going to be in 2025 is what it looks like it's going to happen. And so we'll keep you posted on that for many of you who want to do that. But today, we have the opportunity to share hope. Katie mentioned this a little bit ago, is right after church today, this is something you can do as a whole family, but you don't have to have little kids. You can go down and do this yourself. We have some coloring pages. We have letters that you can write. And so in the kids' wing, right after church, you can go down there and you can color a page, you can draw something, if you know Spanish, you can write something on it, and then we'll put that, and we're going to be sending those away to our Compassion kids down at the project in Santa Rosa. So this is a way we can encourage them to share hope. I was just wondering, how many of you here this morning sponsor a kid down in Peru so we got quite a few of them there. So I'm with you on that. And I've gotten a few letters from my kids recently, and so that's always fun to get those letters. And I just want to say this too, if you don't write consistently, I want to encourage you to do that because that's such a great way to share hope. These kids come from hard situations, and oftentimes they're the only ones in their family who are kind of consistently hearing about Jesus. And just to tell them that you love them and to say that you're praying for them makes a huge difference. And you probably get like letters in the mail, and it has an envelope, and you kind of throw it in the mail, and sometimes it gets thrown away, and you don't write the letter back. So I want to encourage you to use the app or to do that on your computer, and it's because it's so much easier to do online. And if you don't know how to do that, again, today, if you go down to that room in the kids' wing, there's some videos that show you how to do that and to make that an easier process for you so you can consistently make connection with your kid and share hope with them. One of our other partnerships is with, we're calling it Converge Caribbean because we're looking at making a widespread efforts down there. We've started this new partnership with Pastor Jackson, and I think we have a few pictures of him on the next slide. And so there's him and his family, and that's the motorcycle we bought him back in May. He had some transportation issues, and so we covered him to get that motorcycle, and that's been a huge help to him. And so he does this church in the Dominican Republic, but it's for Haitian people primarily. And so what happens is if you know anything about Haiti, it's the poorest country in the world. They have, right now, it's just their whole country's in turmoil. And a lot of people flee the country, and they cross the borders into the DR. And oftentimes what happens is there's some racism in a sense there, and they're treated as second-class citizens there. And so he's trying to care for them and minister to them. And so last year, as part of our Hope Christmas project, we were paying his salary, and for him to continue to do that. And so he's been doing a great job. From all the reports that we get, what it shows is that he has actually started some more churches in different communities, and the people that we deal with, kind of the admin side, say he's really knocking it out of the park. We're hoping to get a little more hands-on kind of update from him, but our contact is actually in the DR right now, and so we've had a hard time with communication. But again, we're going to be doing something for Hope Christmas for Peru, for Pastor Jackson, and you're going to be hearing more about that, and we'll hopefully have a much more detailed update of what's actually going on recently down there. But we're really excited about these partnerships because you have people like Pastor Jackson who are ministering to these people who are experiencing racism and hardship by fleeing their country, and he's sharing the good news of Jesus, and he's starting multiple churches so that he can be a light in the DR. And we're so excited about what's ahead with Peru because we're going to be able to take a trip there, maybe even take a trip to the DR. We might have to do like a smaller scale, maybe a medical type trip if you have kind of that, if that's your job or things like that. Those are some options we're looking at in the future. We're excited to continue to see, as we continue to push on, how God is going to use us to share hope halfway around the world. And we do this because this is what he calls us to do. Look at this verse with me. Hebrews chapter 13 says this, "And we do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifices God is pleased." You know, that's what we want to do with all this. We're looking to share hope in his message, to do some good. We can't change the whole world, but we can do something for a few, which we wish we could do for all, and do good. This is what pleases God. Look at this other verse with me in Romans 15. It says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope and the power of the Holy Spirit." So this is our goal, as we look to experience the hope, the grace, the mercy, the love of God, that it might fill our lives and overflow, that we might share with others this hope and this love so that they might experience that same hope. And as we do that, it shifts our life as well. One of the things we've always say at the Journey is God is the blesser, and he blesses us to be a blessing to others. And as we do that, as we experience his blessings, as we share those blessings with others, it blesses our life even in greater ways, where that hope builds up in our life and overflows. We got a few people who have been really connected with our global partners and have done multiple trips. I'm going to invite them to the stage right now. And Mark's going to be interviewing them, and they're going to share their experience of how they, over the past 20 years, have been part of this sharing hope with our global partners, and how that has shifted their life, how they've experienced the blessings of God, and how they have experienced hope overflowing in their life. So let's welcome them to the stage. Mark will introduce everybody.
All right, guys. It's great to be up here with these guys, and I'm going to just do a little quick introduction so you kind of know who they are. So I'm going to introduce who you are, but maybe because we're kind of celebrating all month long our 20th birthday here at the Journey, and so some of us have been here. Some of you have been here all 20 years. You guys, I don't know if you guys have or not, but this is Heather. Heather, how long have you been coming to the Journey?
20 years.
20 years. Wow, that's awesome. You're still here. Glad you're here. And Betsy?
I'm 10 years.
10 years, great.
Alice, how long?
He's asking his wife.
10 or 15 years.
10 to 15, roughly in there. Yeah, that's awesome. And all these guys have been a part of the Journey in different years, but also that doesn't mean like just attending. They've actually have served and played a significant part in who we are as a church. And in big ways, small ways, hidden ways, and those kinds of things too. So thanks for being a part of the Journey for however many years you've been here. But we're going to be sharing a little bit about some of the ways through some of our trips we've been sharing hope. And so a couple things about all four of us. We were all on one of the Kenya trips several years ago. We've done 4 different Kenya trips, but we were all on one of them together. So we're going to hear about that. And then Heather and Betsy were also on the Peru trip. and that was just a few years ago as well. So as we're talking about sharing hope, we just love to hear from you guys. Maybe share. Let's talk about the Kenya trip first, okay? And maybe each of you take a little turn in this one. Think back to that Kenya trip, and where Matt talked about there was an orphanage there, and they had about 30 kids that we were down supporting and just coming alongside doing the work or supporting the workers that were there. But there's other things that happened around the community, around the orphanage as well, that just happened while we were there. So lots of impact was made. So think about like when you went on that trip, and what is maybe a story or highlight of how you saw us sharing hope? You want to go first, Heather, since you have the microphone?
Sure.
Great.
So I don't know, we shared hope in a lot of different ways, I guess. We helped build a school while we were there. We helped the mamas, they call them, with all of their chores at the House of Hope orphanage. We also did something that I wasn't expecting us to do. We hiked up like 2.5 miles to the Great Rift Valley, this little village in Gatamayu, and we were able to spread hope there with some of the people.
Yeah, they were like some of the remote parts of Kenya.
Yeah.
And like people live out in the mountains. I'm letting them know we're some of the poorest people of the country, right? And yeah, what were you going to share about that?
Just being able to go into their houses, pray with them. We brought them small gifts, things like that
Yeah.
just really, they were so excited to have us there. It was like Taylor Swift was coming, but it was just us. Like we felt like celebrities. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add to that. We hiked up the mountain, and we visited the widows and the elderly grandparents that cared for their orphaned children. And the word got out that the Americans were there, so everybody wanted to meet the Americans, like Taylor Swift. And so we arranged to meet at a community gathering center, and about 100 women from the village came down to meet with us, and Mark did a message, and they wanted us to sing a song, and we were kind of like, we don't know what song we're going to sing, so.
This was all spontaneous.
Yeah, so.
Like Jason, our connection there, he says, hey, just so you know, this is what we're going to do now. You guys need to do like a little church service, and somebody needs to do a message, a children's story, and a song, and we're like, and it starts in 5 minutes. And we're like, okay. So we did it, right?
So one of Mark's boys led the music, and we figured, well, we're singing in English, and they speak Swahili, so they're not going to know if we mess up. So
Yeah.
But at that service, we were able to sponsor. Well, we let them know that we're going to sponsor a daycare or a project to build a daycare center, because the women in the culture are not allowed to remarry, so they pretty much struggle to make their living after that, because they have their kids and they don't have anybody to watch the kids. So that was a way that they could earn some money by bringing their kids to the daycare center that we sponsored. So, but just to watch them all come down from the mountains in their colorful outfits, it was kind of reminded me of on The Chosen, when all the people are gathered around to come to listen to Jesus. It was kind of cool to watch that happen.
Yeah. Charlie, got anything to add to that?
What was the original question?
What is maybe one of the ways we're able to share some hope on that Kenya trip?
Well, I wrote down a bunch of things that we did. We did a lot there in a short amount of time. They were building another schoolroom behind the orphanage there, and they were throwing mud on the walls on the inside. When I found out I couldn't throw mud very well, my daughter threw it very well. The girls were helping give I think they called them mamas, days off by doing cooking and peeling out these beans. This was really difficult, taking the beans out of the pod, cutting firewood. I think the gals helped wash clothes. We just did so much in a short amount of time. It was really heartwarming to see how much they appreciated.
Help and break. Maybe
obviously she didn't understand that. And I told her that I said, I just retired after, 30 some years of working, and I've been saving my money so I could come down here and meet you. But I was a photographer for the trip, and so I was able to go into different sponsors, children's houses with their sponsor, and just witness all of the amazing joy that the families had for us just to be there present. So that was kind of neat.
I feel like the community center, the church that we built, brought hope there for a lot of people, not just our sponsored kids. It brings a lot of people in, helps with the relationship. And really, I mean, that's what all of these are about, the more relationships, projects, or people over projects is one of the things that we said when we were in Kenya. That followed through to Peru, kind of. And meeting your sponsored child is like something not many people get to do. So, and seeing that when I went into the sponsored child's home, she had all the letters and things that I had sent her. So they do keep that stuff and they do get help. So if you are sponsoring someone and you weren't able to go, just know that they are receiving those things and they are getting help and they are so thankful.
Yeah, it's a big deal for them.
Yeah.
And lastly, maybe each could just share, we do these global partners and maybe even some trips because we want to make a difference and we want to share hope. But what also happens is we are the ones that are impacted. And it's maybe not something you even think about or even predict can happen, but we're actually living out what God's created us to do, to share hope. And so when we're living that out, like we are impacted in our own relationship with Jesus. So maybe just each of you just share like on those, the trip or trips, how did that impact you? Maybe even then, or it's still, even though it was many years ago, it still has had a lasting impact on you and your relationship with God.
Okay. The first trip going to Kenya impacted me. My children were young, 14 and 10, I think, when I went 10 years ago. Mark, you said how we were so much younger then. I don't think I've aged, but anyways, no, I'm joking. I was so fearful to leave my family and go and my husband to take care of everything. But so going there, the fear that I had and going away and meeting a bunch of new people, I'm still fearful of a lot of things, but a lot of that has gone. And I was able to pray out loud for my first time in front of other people that were not family members.
Wow,
So
that's cool.
that's one thing from Africa. And then Peru, I was able to share that experience with my son, even though he really didn't want to go. He was fearful, and I kind of prodded him along. And since then, I don't know if his relationship has grown a ton, but he tells me that he still prays and he still has a connection, but he doesn't come to church. So I'm still trying to plant that seed for him as well.
Wow, that's cool.
I would say from the first mission trip that I've gone on, which has been many, many, many years ago, I think I'm way more grateful than I ever was before. I have a better appreciation of all the blessings that I have. I think that when you witness them having so little and the joy that they have in their life, I mean, it's just like, being content in every circumstance. So I just think that God created us to serve others, and that brings incredible joy to my life.
Yeah.
So.
One of the things that impacted me, and it's relatively simple, is just seeing the joy on the orphans' faces. The girls were painting their faces, playing ball, doing all sorts of fun things with them, and they were just tickled to death. Like Betsy said, to go out into the village and see people living in houses made of sticks and plastic wrap just makes you appreciate what you have that you take for so much for granted. And meeting Jason and Lisa and watching the work that they do out there was really awesome.
That's cool. Thanks, guys, for sharing hope on those trips, but even just sharing your experiences with us. Let's give these guys a hand for coming up here and doing that.
As you wrap up today, you heard their stories. You can take that with you, Mark. Here you go. You heard their stories, and even that part at the end of how Heather shared how it built her faith. It challenged her to take steps, her own steps with God, and to pray differently for even her family. And we heard Betsy and Charlie say how just seeing the joy and just the gratitude that's built in their hearts. So we do these things, as it says in Romans 15, that this God of hope wants to fill our life so that his hope might overflow. See, what happens is as we look to share hope, because he calls us to share what we have and to do good things that pleases him, it builds our life up where we experience even more blessings from God as we continue to share those blessings with others. This has been the story of the journey for 20 years, and this will be the story to continue on. We can't change everything, but we can do for a few what we wish we could do for everyone. And we can share this hope that we have with the people that we have the opportunities to. And God can do great things, even halfway around the world, just because we decide to take a few steps to share hope. I hope that one day you get to experience what it's like to sponsor a kid or to go on a trip, because it does change your whole perspective. But even more so, I hope that you can take opportunities, just begin to share hope with even the people in your lives and those around you. So let's take advantage of the opportunities we have, and let's ask God to do even greater things in and through our church in the years ahead.